just west of Edgewater, Florida. We are going to be locating a new GPS test section on this roadway. As you can tell by the numbering system, this is an SPS3 site, and this is the one for the thin overlay. What I expect they'll do is to carry the thin overlay from the interchange with 95 probably, which is less than a mile in back of us, on up to here, and include it over this section, and then run it out before we get to the GPS section, which is the next one down the road. I'm going to pull up just to show a view of the area. Just looking back up, we're going to be working in the eastbound lanes. I'm looking back towards the west, towards Interstate 95, which is just beyond that curve. Orange groves. The SPS3 site with a thin overlay is obviously going to be right here, but then on up ahead is where we're going to have the GPS site. We'll let that, before we get into that curve up there, we'll skip over that curve before we pick up the other SPS3 sites. And the reason for that is there is a road which is coming in from the left as we're looking, and they're expecting that there may be a left turn lane added, or a turn lane added to the roadway on up there. So we're just going to stay away from that curve. It's also super elevated, and there's less distress in there than there is where we don't have that. We have a total of 4 of the standard sites. The GPS is going to double as the control section, and we have 3 supplemental test sections, and we'll be describing those as we go on through. Beginning with a walking tour, we've got some medium to high severity alligator cracking in this section here. Most of it's confined to the wheel paths, as you might normally expect. You can see that there's some spalling which has occurred at the corners there with the alligator cracking. It becomes intermittent here in the outer wheel path. We do have some transverse cracks here that will be counted as such, since they do come across the entire width of the lane. Have a skin patch supplied apparently. This project really works out pretty good. We were a little concerned because we didn't think we would have enough room to get the supplemental sites they wanted. By the way, here's some of the higher severity cracking. Took a quarter out to put it down there on the pavement surface just to show one of these spalled areas, just what type of size it is. The quarter would fit down in there. Back off of that now. And looking around, you can see where there's other areas. I haven't seen any signs of pumping here. And there are other sections that you'll see as we go on down where we don't have anywhere near as serious of distress as we do here. Moving on down, it doesn't appear that we've got too much running. We'll be checking that. In this case, I'm just going through and shooting the video as we go. One thing you can also see is that we're freehanding the station numerals down. I am stenciling out the section number so it's more legible for the passcode, but in this particular case, it's going to be covered up anyway, so there's no need to go to extreme effort on marking it. Here in the inside wheel path, no distress yet. They were out doing some patching on down over to the east of us this morning. Some potholes. You see, as I mentioned before, we get into areas where we have more and different severity. Over here, the alligator cracking is more in the outer wheel path, and we pick it up again over there. In this area, it would be in the low to moderate severity category. We have just a few spots here where there's some of that spalling which has occurred at the corners. You can see throughout this section, though, we have cracking. This will be one that we'll need the Pasco to get over here and pick up. Fortunately, this route is, they have to drive over this pavement to get to the 2 GPS. sites on US 1 just south of Edgewater. So this is really a nice situation. Also, the public has been calling for something to be done on this roadway, and we'll be taking care of that at the same time as well. So we've really got a pretty good project here to use, as it turns out. This was built in 1973, no, 1970, sorry. Here we are at the end of the test section. We've got a 100-foot transition area where we're gonna feather out the overlay, and then we're gonna leave 100 feet blank before you get to the GPS section for room for sampling and so on, rather than have the 500-foot upstream. We'll do that up from the very first section. Haven't seen any guidelines on it, but it only makes sense to, we don't have all that space that we can afford to waste out here. One thing that we have here is everything is in about the same fill, about 4. It might vary from 4 to 6 feet, but it's pretty constant through here. And now we're moving on up to the GPS site, and